Okay, ProteinLevine here to motivate, inspire, and share 27 years of training experience so you could stay consistent no matter what life throws at you. And today we're doing some delts. I'm starting here, like I have been starting my shoulder days lately over the last few years. Um, one of the initially many years ago, the common complaint from judges with my physique. Well, it wasn't a common complaint, but when I asked what could I improve upon, the usual consensus was shoulders, which I agreed upon. Also, I felt that was obviously not talking about my lower body, but upper body, shoulders. So after that, I started doing a lot more delt work, a lot of lateral raises, rear delt exercises, and I consistently have been growing them. Um, and it's just something that I do now regularly. I'll do a ton of rear delts, side laterals, all seated. You'll see high reps, and really just trying to get a good connection with them, a lot of blood in them. Um, and, everybody responds differently to different things. I believe the shoulders is my personal feeling. They're relatively small muscles. I don't think you need a lot of weight. I think it's more important that you're connecting with them. It's the hardest muscle to like isometrically contract, like compared to like your bicep or your tricep. Like you really got to go through a range of motion to contract your delts. So it's a little tougher to isolate them. I think it comes with time. But for me, I really noticed the most significant improvement when I started going at higher reps, especially when I started workouts with just lots of sets of 20 reps, 15, 20. Um, and I would go heavier. Sometimes I will gradually go heavier, but as long as I'm maintaining perfect form. Because once you start swinging with your shoulders, it is very easy to negate like a huge percentage of the weight you're moving because you don't need a lot of weight. Like, it's funny, nothing wrong with it. You see some of these videos of people throwing around like obscene amount of weight with shoulder raises. And it's like, all right, how much of that weight is being moved by like, your body, like the core swinging? But, some people connect better that way. Just saying different techniques. Like I know I personally, used to lift a lot heavier and then I started just trying to really focus on feeling the muscle contract. And inevitably I was going heavier with that also. And just over time now I do more reps. I hate to say it a little. I don't go as heavy as I did my uh, you know, 10, 20 years ago. Anywho, that's hopefully in time I will start going heavier again. I was dealing with some health related issues that you know weren't probably uh beneficial for gains, but I always train no matter what situation I'm in. So I've always stayed in shape regardless. Anywho, this right here is a tough exercise for me. This focuses more on your front delts. Um, Also, I only do motions that don't bother me. I've pushed through a lot of injuries. The shoulders are one of those things. I've had rotator cuff surgery. It's one of those things I try and avoid um, irritation. So I always stick with a range of motion that feels most comfortable. And at the end of the day, I think everybody should do that. You know, you don't want to force yourself too much into a position that does not feel natural. You know, but there's a difference between that and learning how to do things correctly. You got to know the difference. So same thing, just lots of variations of lateral raises. Well, starting with the rear delts, side delts, front delts. You can't really completely isolate one or the other, but you could do more. You could do side rear, side front. You're really breaking it more into the front and back, if anything. Um, but lately, I've gone through many variations of shoulder routines over the years. I used to do just like a lot of pressing, very heavy upright rows and dumbbell presses, heavy barbell presses. Now, most recently, I've been keeping my pressing exercises together for one pressing day. So, like, it's mostly chest and shoulder presses. But for shoulders, I'm focusing a lot more on the side delts and rear delts. Here, more rear delt work. So now the exercise you don't really need to go very heavy on. Once you feel yourself throwing too much swing in, you're not really feeling the part of the shoulder that you want to feel contracting and burning, then you're doing too much weight. Also, when it comes to rear delts, like shoulders in particular, um, it's not. I don't look at it as a type of muscle. I'm trying to like. It's not one of those muscles where you want to brag about. I believe how much weight you could do, like how much weight you could lift in a rear cable fly. I look at it more as building a small muscle that is delicate in a sense that it's not natural to move your arm in those positions with heavy weight, and I believe the chance of injury goes up if you start trying to do some of these motions like really heavy and throwing the weight around. I wouldn't recommend it. I always say you want to go through like at the fundamentals, go through a full range motion and really, stretch the muscle, feel it contract. It's a little different when it comes to shoulders, um, because of the type of joint it is. There's a lot of degrees of motion in it. Um, but actually, it's funny. The front raises the same thing. Now I don't go very heavy. I try and stay with a weight where it's relative. How much weight you can lift is relative to how strong you are. But something that I say I can control and feel a very good contraction with in my shoulders throughout the range of motion without swinging the weight up. I always say your muscle does not know how much weight it's lifting. It only knows the stress it's under, and throwing the weight up, you're stressing a lot more than just a muscle you're trying to focus on. These are things, over time, just keep focusing on the feeling of the muscle going through the rep range and the contraction. You get a better mind muscle connection ultimately, and then you get better muscle development, like anything else. You got to know what you're looking for, where you can really build on it. Why, especially when you first start, I think it's important to learn proper form off the bat, build good habits. But if you're gonna have bad form, might as well do it when you first start. I throw the upright rows in a lot because it's kind of like a precursor to doing the heavier trap work. You go a little lighter, it gets, I take into consideration that I'm going to be doing a heavy, placing a lot of weight on my body on the next exercise. So I kind of like to kind of get the area ready for it to some extent. Make sure it's properly stretched, you know, the muscle has gone through, has been introduced to some weight. I always say the more, like, not that I have a ton of muscle, but over as you get stronger, you're gonna have to warm up a little bit more, unfortunately. And unfortunately, as you get older, well, I just take it a lot more seriously now. Oh, with shrugs in particular. You're putting your traps, stretching them out with a lot of weight. So you want to keep things nice and smooth. Obviously, I'm a bit hyper aware of these things because of certain imbalances I have to deal with due to the obvious reasons. But still, you don't want to, this not a ton of weight, but 120-pound dumbbells. If you're, uh, you could throw a lot of weight on a barbell. And maybe when you're younger, throwing it around a lot, but I don't know. I feel it gets a little dangerous. Anyway, yeah, I think at the end of the year, do one more. I'm gonna do a show at the end of the year. I made a little improvement. Get my shoulders a little bigger. Get my leg a little bigger. Get better at posing. 'Cause that's the thing I always have trouble with. See what happens. Subscribe for the follow off season and prep.